Let's kill him.
We're recording now.
God damn it. I think when we start recording, we don't know who I plan to kill, though, so it's all right.
Yeah, it's fine. We have deniability now.
Now you'll never know. But then if somebody dies within the week this podcast goes out, maybe it was us, maybe it wasn't. We'll never admit the truth. You'll have to follow the clues like everybody else.
There you go. Hi, everybody. Welcome to Smark Avengers. My name is Corey, and with me is Dylan and John. Guys, how you doing?
Hi. That's the intro, is it?
Yep.
All right. Good. Let's make it sure.
Mm-hmm. All right. Doing good.
Were you expecting something more grandiose?
Usually it goes on longer than that. Right?
Well, usually, yeah, but we get...
Oh, yeah, I guess we got a lot of grind to cover today, so...
Yeah.
Jump straight into it. And no fucking around, guys. Here we go.
DCB, taking care of business.
That's us, baby.
As Elvis's band would say.
Well, they said a lot of stuff.
You guys like Elvis Presley?
I've never met him.
You beat me to it, you bastard.
John, did you see the Baz Luhrmann Elvis movie?
Yes.
What'd you think of it?
I can't remember, which is not a good sign.
What did you give it out of 5?
I'm just looking it up. I gave it
3.
2.5 out of 5.
What, really?
Oh, wow.
I thought it was good.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I'm not really a huge Baz Luhrmann fan anyway. But,
yeah, he's got a style.
And Tom Hanks was really doing a bit in there as well.
Yeah, I heard the voice.
Can I tell you my favorite part about the Colonel Parker character is that he was very clearly an English immigrant, but nobody knew what someone from West Virginia was supposed to sound like. So they're like, yeah, he's from West Virginia. That was my favorite part of watching that. I was like, oh shit, they really did have no idea what we sounded like, huh?
I mean, I have no idea. And I'm on a show with you.
That's true. Well, because I don't sound like most West Virginians. We have to get Brady on here. Nobody knows who Brady is.
Yeah, let's get Brady on. He seems like he knows loads about comics.
Knows loads.
You know, he'd be great on the show.
He certainly would. Speaking of knowing loads about things, today, and potentially beyond that, we're going to be doing a deep dive on another storyline. We kind of did this before with the Clone Saga and the Death of Superman. So today we are going to discuss the Batman storyline, Knightfall. Do you guys have any familiarity with this story?
Is this the Bane one?
Yes. It is.
Then I am familiar with the Bane and the thing that happens to Batman.
So I've actually got 3 graphic novels covering most of Knightfall, I think. Well, I think the collected editions I have is like Knightfall. They've got different names. I can't remember what they are. But yeah, basically I've got all 3 of those.
Oh yeah, we'll be talking about all of it. So have you read them, or are they on your to-do list?
Oh no, I've read them, but probably about 10 or maybe even 15 years ago, so it's not exactly fresh in my mind.
Okay. All right, so as we discussed in the Death of Superman episode, DC Comics in the 90s was an interesting place of change. We were just a few years past the original Crisis on Infinite Earths, that reset the continuity for the first time. But in the 90s, there was this industry-wide self-reflection on what kind of superheroes people wanted to read. So similar to how Death of Superman addressed why Superman is so important to DC by illustrating how his death impacted heroes, supporting characters, and villains alike, Knightfall was a storyline in the Batman world that was supposed to basically show the same thing. So to start us off, this was a brainchild of Batman line editor Dennis O'Neil, who is a legend in my book, as well as Batman line writers Chuck Dixon, Doug Muonick, and Alan Grant. Any of those names familiar to you guys?
Alan Grant is star of Jurassic Park.
There you go.
That's what I was going to say. I'm like, Alan Grant sounds familiar.
Played by Sam Neill.
Yep.
Yeah. You guys have anything to do with dinosaurs? What's going on here? Is there going to be dinosaurs in this Batman?
Well, in the
Episode?
Batcave, there is a giant T-Rex statue.
Where did he steal that from?
He got it from one of his cases where it was like a robot dinosaur that he had to stop.
So why? What? I thought it was a skeleton.
Yeah, it's like no, it's not a skeleton.
No.
It's a robot.
Okay, cool. Because when you think about it, like a Tyrannosaurus, whatever, you're like, obviously it's a skeleton because there's no more Tyrannosauruses around anymore. But a robot one makes sense to have. But
One
then
of
I was
those
like, why would it
weird
have a
things
skeleton?
where-
So
Yeah,
I got
like
confused.
if you picked up a Batman book without knowing why it was there, you'd be just asking like, why is there a T-Rex in the Batcave?
There's also a giant penny.
Yeah,
It's because he's a fucking billionaire. Of course he has a dinosaur in his room. You know what I mean? What else is he gonna spend it on? A super yacht that gets sank or a trip to see the Titanic in a submarine? No, he's gonna spend it on a dinosaur.
Well, yeah, I mean, so he has the giant dinosaur. There's a giant penny. There's a glass case that has his dead sidekick's costume in it. There's a lot going on in the Batcave.
It would be weird if the glass case had his dead sidekick in it. Like that would be
Yeah,
weird.
yeah. You know, like the thing about that glass case with that with the costume of Jason Todd in it, it has gotten smashed so many times. Like you have to wonder, like, is he just sending Alfred to IKEA to get another like Detolf to put that bad boy in?
Yeah, don't you think at some point he'd be like, guy, get a stronger case. Stop
Can it be
getting the
bulletproof?
shitty one.
Yeah.
I know it's
why does he
cheap.
even still have it up as well? Jason Todd came back from the dead, so
Well, I don't think he has it now. That'd be really weird, unless it's like if Jason swings by, he's like, "Hey, you want to put it on for old time's sake?"
Yeah, Jason Todd's like, dude, can I have my shit back?
Yeah. That was one of the people who did break it open, by the way. When Jason Todd came back, he smashed the case and put on the top half of it to go confront Tim Drake for the first time.
Was he just nude in the bottom half?
Yeah, he was Donald ducking it, Winnie the Pooh.
Yeah, just his little like, just hanging out there.
That's his red hood. He's not circumcised.
He's like, guys, is it really cold out here or is it just me?
All right. Well, so Knightfall ran from April of 1993 to August of 1994. Coincidentally, Death of Superman ran from December of 1992 to October of 1993. The writers for Superman and Batman had no idea they were doing this. Denny O'Neil denies that the Knightfall storyline was inspired by Death of Superman and has gone on the record to state that it had been in development for about 3 years. And if they had known, they would have pushed the storyline down another year or two to keep from that overlap happening. But all of this can be traced back to an initial idea for the character of Azrael that came part of a 2-part story idea that was pitched to Denny O'Neil by Peter Milligan in 1991. That initial pitch was expanded to a 4-issue miniseries titled Batman, Sword of Azrael. That was followed by a one-shot titled Batman, Vengeance of Bane, 11 issues of Batman to build up to the story, and then the 3-arc story, Knightfall, Night Quest, and Night's End, and follow-up story arcs that made up the entire storyline. So in total, Knightfall only ran from April 93 to August of 94, but in reality it had run from like probably the end of 92 to about 95, 96, 97. Like this had a longer impact.
impressive.
Knightfall introduced 2 main characters that had a major part on the storyline. So before we get into Knightfall, we need to introduce these 2. So we're going to talk about Azrael and Bane. First off, how familiar are you with Azrael?
As familiar as you've talked about him a couple of times before on the show.
Okay.
Pretty much, yeah.
Azrael is one of my top 5 characters. Love this guy. Couldn't tell you why, just do. But Azrael was created by Denny O'Neil and designed by Joe Quesada. And Azrael is an anti-hero who is introduced in Batman, Sword of Azrael, and becomes one of the main characters of Knightfall, if not the main character. In the miniseries, John Paul Valley is a graduate student of Gotham University who discovers that he was brainwashed as a child by a secret religious order of assassins when his dying father turns up at his door in battle armor. This triggers the system, which was the brainwashing conditioning he was put under as a child, and that activated him as the new Azrael with the mission to find a wayward member of the Order of St. Dumas that was responsible for his father's death. So as a child, John was trained to be ruthless, cold-blooded, and to kill without conscience, but his memories were erased until he was activated one day. In reality, John is soft-spoken and introverted and shy, but Azrael, when the system is active, is direct, aggressive, and very unforgiving. So John finds himself drawn to an old Order of St. Dumas temple in Europe, where he learns the truth about his upbringing, his father, and his secret place in the world. And while his father had the mantle of Azrael, he dressed up like an old knight, like an old Templar knight, with chainmail and plate armor and wielding a sword. But due to John's genius-level intellect, he upgraded the armor to be more tech-based, with dual wrist gauntlets that had like massive blades on them, flamethrowers, and a long sword that could be engulfed with flames with the press of a button. So as Azrael begins to go about his mission of vengeance, he encounters Batman, who is also investigating his father's death, and the two collide at first. Eventually, John fights through the system to rescue Batman, when he could have easily just killed his father's murderer, which convinces Bruce that he can be trained and saved as an ally. John begins working with Bruce Wayne and Tim Drake at night, while working as a security guard for Wayne Enterprises during the day. So when creating Azrael, Dennis O'Neil stated that he wanted to make a foil for Batman. And he stated, quote, "Bruce Wayne is very aware of what he is and how that contributes to what he does. He is not moved by internal or external forces that he doesn't already understand. John Paul, on the other hand, has virtually no idea who he really is. He is, in the worst possible way, ignorant. So he had a rotten childhood he can barely remember. Conversely, Bruce remembers his childhood, which was, up until that one critical moment, very happy and privileged. So they are extreme opposite ends of the psychological spectrum." So that is what you need to know about Azrael before we go in. Any thoughts?
Nope.
Well,
Cool.
sounds good.
Mm-hmm.
Bane was created by Chuck Dixon and designed by Graham Nolan. Bane is introduced in the one-shot Batman Vengeance of Bane. Bane's father had been a revolutionary who had escaped the court system of Santa Prisca, an island country in the Caribbean. Upon his father's mysterious death, the corrupt government decreed that his young son would serve out his life sentence, and thus Bane spent his childhood and early adult life in the country's Peña Doro prison. While in prison, he read as many books as he could get his hands on, spent most of his spare time doing bodybuilding training in the prison's gym, developed his own form of meditation, and learned to fight in the merciless school of prison life. Despite circumstances that were beyond his control, he found teachers of various sorts during his incarceration, ranging from hardened criminals to an elderly Jesuit priest who gave him a classical education while he was there. Bane committed his first murder at the age of 8, stabbing a criminal who wanted to use him to gain information about the prison.
Me too.
There you go. His murder weapon was a knife that he kept hidden in a teddy bear named Osito.
Ah.
Yeah. Bane is tortured by a monstrous, terrifying bat creature that appears in his dreams, and it gives him an intense fear of bats. He ultimately established himself as the king of the Peña Doro prison and became, that's when he took on the name Bane. Up until that point, he had been nameless. That's how young he was when he was incarcerated. The prison's controllers took note and eventually forced him to become a test subject for a mysterious drug called venom, which had killed all of their other subjects. The Peña Doro prison venom experiment nearly killed Bane at first, but he survived and found that the drug vastly increased his physical strength, although he needed to take it every 12 hours via a system of tubes that pumped directly into his skull, or he would suffer debilitating side effects, thus rendering him addicted. Bane escapes Peña Doro along with several accomplices, with his ambition turning to destroy Batman, about whom he had heard stories about. Gotham City fascinates Bane because, like Peña Doro, fear rules Gotham, but it is the fear of Batman. So Bane is convinced that Batman is the personification of that bat, which he had had in his dreams since childhood. So therefore, Bane believed it was fate that he had to take out Batman in order to take control of Gotham. So that is everything you need to know about Bane before we get started.
Wait. What's his favorite flavor of ice cream?
He strikes me as a Rocky Road guy.
Fair enough. That's all I need to know about Bane.
There you go. John, any thoughts on Bane?
Nope, not really.
Cool. All right, so in the build-up to Knightfall, the writers began to put Batman through the ringer. So after encounters with 3 different killers and assassins, Bruce Wayne is left wondering if he's losing his edge as his body is being worn down with fatigue. Meanwhile, Bruce has left Robin, who's Tim Drake at this time, to help train John Paul in detective work, hoping that the meticulous nature of that would guide his brainwashing away from being an assassin. Bruce begins ignoring the advice of friends and allies alike as they tell him that he needs to rest, while also continuing to deal with his trauma from Jason Todd's death. Meanwhile, Bane and his accomplices are seen watching and observing Batman. Bane then becomes more active with his observations and begins to make his presence in Gotham and his intentions known by forcing encounters between Batman and Killer Croc, as well as drugging the Riddler with a dose of venom and sending him after Batman. So with each of these and other encounters, Bane studies Batman from afar and begins to assess his strengths and weaknesses. Meanwhile, Robin is struggling to work with Azrael due to John's lack of social skills and the violent brainwashing, as well as Batman's just beginning to shut him out because Batman is once again weighing these options of why do I have a sidekick? So all of this culminates when Bane assaults Arkham Asylum, breaking out all of the inmates and arming them with weapons. So that's the preamble to Knightfall. Now we can get started into Knightfall proper. So Knightfall is broken into 3 arcs, with the first arc being called Knightfall, but even that is broken into 2 parts. So this is what I was saying, like when I was putting this together, like there's a lot to this story. So Knightfall is the first arc and is broken up into Broken Bat and Who Rules the Night. So Broken Bat picks up where we left off. Bane has released all of Arkham's most dangerous criminals at once, and a physically exhausted and emotionally drained Batman has to apprehend them all. Among the freed inmates, there are numerous high-profile villains such as the Joker, the Scarecrow, the Riddler, and Poison Ivy, as well as many lesser-known villains, which I know Dylan's going to love to hear all of these names. The Mad Hatter, the Ventriloquist, the Firefly, the Cavalier, the Film Freak, Mr. Zaz.
Didn't take too long until I got what I liked.
Yep, I was going to figure out there was going to be one you're going to like. Mr. Zaz, Cornelius Stirk, Abattoir, and Amygdala.
What is Cornelius Stirk? What was his name?
Cornelius Stirk.
Stirk. Cornelius. What does he do?
Cornelius Stirk is a cannibal with the ability to cause fear or hallucinations through telepathy. So yeah, he looks kind of like the Crypt Keeper.
I mean, if my name was Cornelius Stirk or Studge or whatever, I would eat people too.
Yeah. So yeah, he looks like the Crypt Keeper, and he'll make you scared, and then he'll eat you.
Understandable. All right. Does he eat bats though?
He tries to.
Fair enough. At least he tries.
Yeah.
What about Film Freak? What does he do?
The Film Freak?
Mm-hmm.
Just watch his films.
I mean, that sounds like John.
Yeah.
Hey, he's no freak. No, come on now.
So the Film Freak is a serial killer whose main gimmick is that he commits murders to tribute famous movie crimes.
Oh, it's just like me.
There you
go. Well, they got to get the inspiration from somewhere, you know.
So yeah, mainly he like stalks people like Norman Bates in the movie Psycho, and you know a lot of shit like that.
Okay.
All right. So despite having Robin at his side, Batman continues to shut him out as he tries to capture all these criminals alone. During this time, Bane studies Batman to such a degree that he's able to identify him as Bruce Wayne by body language alone, during an incident where Poison Ivy takes control of the minds of Gotham's elite during a socializing event. Bane has no interest in Bruce Wayne, the individual, as opposed to the symbol of Batman, so he chooses not to out him. There's just nothing to gain from doing that for him. So, by the way, I think that makes, like, in the span of a few years, like, the second person to identify Batman without ever actually having to see him unmasked. Because the first one was Tim Drake, who figured out that Bruce was Batman because he had seen Dick Grayson perform in his parents' trapeze act. And Robin did a flip that he'd only ever seen Dick Grayson do, and through, like, transitive properties figured out that Bruce was Batman. I just thought that was interesting. So, everything comes to a head when Batman faces off with Joker and the Scarecrow at the same time and relives Jason Todd's death while under the influence of Scarecrow's fear toxin. Now that his physical limit and wit's end, Bane strikes now. First, he sends his partners to attack Batman to further weaken him before meeting Batman at Wayne Manor. So the fight between Bane and Batman takes place in Batman issue number 497. So after spending the past 3 months being pushed to the brink physically and psychologically, Batman is no match for the fresh tactical mind and venom-enhanced strength of Bane. The fight leads to the Batcave, where Bane pummels Bruce relentlessly before lifting his body high above his head and breaking his back across his knee. A very famous panel of that. Bane then takes Batman's body to a densely populated Gotham Square and tosses him off of the roof as a symbolic message that Batman has been broken. Robin and Alfred were able to intervene, but Bruce Wayne is left paraplegic as a result of the attack. Bane proceeds to take over Gotham's underworld and has now assumed control over its criminal enterprises. So, that is the end of Act 1 of Act 1, Broken Bat. Any thoughts on
How
Bane's
many
plan?
issues was Act 1?
Act 1, it's a good bit. Let me take a quick look.
Should we vamp while you're looking for stuff?
Yeah, if you'd like.
All right. What do you think Film Freak's favorite film is?
Yeah, John, what's your favorite film?
No. The fictional character Film Freak that in no way resembles our podcast host, John.
I reckon
Except for all the
Jaws,
stuff he
maybe.
I was thinking of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
I mean, yeah,
Because
that could
he's
be
a
possible.
killer. You know what I mean? If he mimics his crimes to make it look like a film.
Well, yeah, he can still dress up as a shark and eat people.
Like the land shark bit from Saturday Night Live?
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah. Fair enough.
So, Broken Bat is 12 issues that is covered in Batman and Detective Comics. So that ran from late April, July 93.
Okay.
So yeah, that panel of Bane breaking Batman's back, very iconic. Kind of this, not the same kind of power of like the torn Superman cape from Death of Superman, but it's up there.
Yeah, still pretty impactful.
So, Who Rules the Night is the second piece of this story that starts with Bruce Wayne contacting a doctor by the name of Chandra Kinsolving to assist him with his injury. She was his somewhat love interest at the time and had been helping him address his physical fatigue, as well as attending to Robin's catatonic father, Jack Drake. That's another kind of aspect of this that is covered right as Tim Drake becomes Robin. His parents were kidnapped, and his mother died, and his father was rendered like catatonic as a result of the attack. It's thus like how Tim Drake can basically sneak out of his house every night and be Robin. Alfred and Bruce explained to her that he'd been in a car accident, but Dr. Kinsolving seemingly saw through that, obviously didn't say anything about it though, and she begins to treat Bruce right along with Jack Drake. So over the course of the rehabilitation treatment, Bruce and Dr. Kinsolving begin to fall for one another. So the question then becomes, what happens to Batman? Gotham needs a Batman. That's an established fact, right?
I guess.
So Tim Drake nominates that Nightwing should be Batman because Dick Grayson knows the city, knows how Batman operates, is mentally competent and more experienced, and frankly, Tim is a bit of a Dick Grayson superfan. Bruce, however, says that Nightwing has enough responsibilities on his hands with his own life and leading the Titans. It's important to note that at this point in time, Batman and Nightwing did not have a great relationship. Post-Crisis, the interactions were more of Nightwing resented the fact that Bruce had basically replaced him with Jason Todd after he left. Because like Robin was like his name, and it would just like imagine somebody just giving your name to somebody else. But he also resented the fact that he felt that Bruce didn't do a good enough job training Jason, and thus Jason's death was on him. So they weren't getting along super hot. He also said that Grayson would only accept the role of Batman reluctantly, but in actuality, Bruce knew that Dick would probably want to go after Bane, and he deemed that Bane was too dangerous for anyone to go after. So instead, Bruce Wayne decides that John Paul Valley would take on the role of Batman's protector, with strict orders to stay away from Bane. Bruce, however, does not get to monitor John closely, as Dr. Kinsolving and Jack Drake are kidnapped. Bruce and Alfred opt to pursue their kidnappers, leaving Gotham in the hands of John Paul Valley. So, initially, John Paul is a different sort of Batman, but not dangerous. His lack of social skills and disinterest in detective work set him apart, as well as his more aggressive and physical combat style. John was very, very strong and very fast, despite his appearance. He also began to experiment with gadgets and modifying Batman's suit with items that he wore on his Azrael armor, included these really gnarly-looking bladed gauntlets. So two big moments in his start as Batman that stands out are his first encounter with Bane, who immediately recognized that the man in the Batman suit was not the person he'd broken. Bane nearly kills Azrael, or John, before he's able to use his bladed gauntlets and get away. The second moment is when John goes after the Scarecrow, and Scarecrow hits him with fear toxin, and that causes the system to take over John's body and basically counteract the fear toxin. So the combination of this humiliating defeat against Bane and then the system coming back was a recipe for disaster. Robin was continuing to assist John, but found himself growing more alienated because John was beginning to get arrogant and also incredibly paranoid. So as the system began to take a bigger hold of John, he began to create even more and more modifications for the batsuit. So that is the end of the second part of Act 1, Who Rules the Night.
Okay.
And that was 10 issues from late July to October 93. And that was covered in Detective Comics, Showcase 93, Batman Shadow of the Bat. Any thoughts on how Act 1 has come and gone?
So that's the whole of Act 1?
That is all of Act 1.
So, I mean, that's pretty impactful so far.
Mm-hmm.
A lot
Shaking
went
up
on.
the status quo.
Yes. And like we had said in a different episode, it seems like they're doing that a lot in the 90s, where they were taking established characters and just turning them on their heads. And like you even said, right after the death of Superman, which I think, it kind of makes sense. Like, keep the pressure on, keep people interested. So to like a big shakeup like that with Batman is, something people didn't expect.
Yeah.
And also what I like about it is it really, like, right off the bat establishes Bane as like a big fucking deal.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? He figures out who Bruce Wayne is. He fucking cripples him. He even figures out that, like, the other guy isn't the same Batman. Like he's they're doing a good job of, like, building him up, making him seem like a big deal.
I think the thing about Bane that because of the venom and it gives him like super strength and usually makes him grow bigger, that a lot of people tend to forget that he is like a tactical genius. Because that's really what makes Bane scary, is just how clever he is and like how well prepared he is in any moment. Bane is one of my favorite Batman villains. He's, Azrael's in my top 5. Bane's probably in my top 3 of Batman villains. So, John, since you had read this previously, anything there that stands out that I might have missed or didn't put enough emphasis on, or anything that, like, you had forgotten about?
Not really. Like the only thing I really remember from when I read this so long ago was the bit with Joker and Riddler teaming up before like Bane sort of struck basically. But they were I swear they were like being chased by Batman through sewers or something. But that's like the only thing I can remember from this entire storyline.
That's fair. All right, so Night Quest is the second arc of the story, and that is also broken up in two parts, which is Night Quest the Crusade and Night Quest the Search. So Night Quest the Search follows the story of Bruce Wayne and Alfred Pennyworth tracking down the man who kidnapped Dr. Kinsolving and Robin's father, Jack Drake. Their investigation has them travel from the Caribbean islands and to Great Britain before discovering the identification of the kidnapper as Dr. Kinsolving's brother by adoption. In a shocking reveal, it is discovered that Dr. Kinsolving and her brother have metahuman abilities to heal or harm people. After an incident when they were children that resulted in the death of their abusive adopted father, Dr. Kinsolving swore to never use her powers again, but her brother only wanted to embrace them further. So he had kidnapped her and Jack Drake as a hostage so that he could force her to experiment with her powers. Eventually, it's discovered that her brother had created a psychic weapon that could send the harmful energy that she could generate out and kill someone from a great distance away, which he used to kill their adopted mother. To accomplish this, he kept his sister drugged and connected to a machine that siphoned out her powers, basically. When Bruce and Alfred find them, a fight breaks out and her brother is injured in the fight. Dr. Kinsolving attempts to heal her brother, but the drugged out state that she's in leaves her confused and she ends up killing him instead. Dr. Kinsolving, overcome with regret for all the lives lost and the damage that came about on her account, heals Bruce's broken spine completely, but the strain and the chemical influences reverts her permanently into a childlike state. Bruce, overcome with sadness at this loss in life, checks Dr. Kinsolving into a medical home so that she can live out the rest of her life under the best care available. Bruce ends up deciding to return to Gotham with Jack Drake as a civilian, but Alfred decides to stay in England as he does not want to see Bruce be tempted to return to his life as Batman. And that is the Night Quest, The Search. The Search was a lot shorter, only about 7 issues. It was mainly a backup from books, and this took place in Justice League Task Force, Batman Shadow of the Bat, Batman Legends of the Dark Knight, and an issue of Robin. There's your how to heal someone from a broken back, by the way. You end up just getting someone who is a doctor who just so happens to have healing powers that she has been neglecting to use this entire time.
But this time she'll use them.
Yes, and it turned her into a child.
That always happens to me.
Yep.
Boy, every time I healed somebody with my magical powers, which some people would say is an abuse of my doctorate. But I said, no, I'm just going to heal people with my magical abilities and then turn into a child and then go up again, get another doctorate, become another doctor, and heal somebody again. Do it all over again. Live forever. Just becoming a little baby. Is that part of the storyline? Did they do that?
No.
Because that's what I would have done.
She didn't actually become a baby.
But like,
she just basically like became mentally on the same scale as a child.
Oh, they didn't like. Physically.
No, it's not a baby Juggernaut situation.
Okay.
Boo.
I mean, nothing is a baby Juggernaut situation. If we've learned one thing about this show, nothing in comics has become a baby Juggernaut situation, except that one thing we made up.
Yeah,
2 months ago.
It's been longer than 2 months, man.
That we didn't properly talk about in the book.
We've never really addressed baby Juggernaut, just so you know.
We never will.
No. I think it started off mic, and then baby Juggernaut just came up in conversation, and
it's
there he is.
It's become a legend now. The legend of baby Juggernaut.
You know, if we ever do get to the point of making merch, I would love to have a T-shirt that the front of it looks like one of those little papooses that you carry a baby in, but it's just a baby Juggernaut.
Yeah. This is big helmet sticking at the top.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We're gonna get right on that.
We'll work on that. I thought he healed himself in like the Lazarus pit.
Nope.
See, I haven't read the book, obviously. Like I said,
So
but like I know the Lazarus pits in Batman are known for their healing properties.
yeah, exactly. I mean, that's what brought Jason Todd back to life. It's what
Right.
keep Ra's al Ghul alive.
So
But
that's
it
I
sort
guess
of
that's
makes you go
why.
a bit mad as well, though, doesn't it?
Yep, makes you crazy.
I mean, he dresses up like a fucking bat.
But yeah,
You
I think
know?
this story's been I will say somewhat adapted because some of the aspects of the story, and we'll talk about it when we get to that part, get left behind. But I would not be surprised if there has been, in some manner or another, a story where Batman gets his back broken and then it gets put into a Lazarus pit.
Yeah, maybe I'm confusing it with something else. Maybe people just love breaking his back and thinking, that's it. He'll never come back from this. Not like it happened one other time. Yeah, this is it.
Right.
I've broken his back, and therefore I assume he's dead, and I'm just
Mhm.
going to walk away.
All right. So, Night Quest: The Crusade is kind of the main aspect of Night Quest. This starts in Batman issue number 500, as John, in a new high-tech armored batsuit that resembles the Azrael costume a little bit more than Bruce's, hunts down Bane. Eventually, he is found, and John and Bane fight it out while putting countless bystanders in danger. With the new suit and the weapons that come along with it, and the hardened edge that comes with the system being in full force, John is able to physically and mentally break Bane. Originally, he struggles with either killing Bane or letting him be captured alive. He ends up opting to send Bane to Blackgate Prison instead. And as John looks out at Gotham after the fight, it becomes more and more obvious that the cracks in his mental health are starting to show. So, John's tenure as Batman goes on. The system begins to take further control over him and becomes more and more violent and unstable as he begins to see the spirit of his father and St. Dumas himself, who are guiding him on his crusade of violence. Tim Drake, who is still sitting at his side as Robin, is horrified as he watches John mercilessly beat low-level thieves and criminals with weapons and nearly to death at the same time. During this time, the Batsuit sees even more modifications and begins to further resemble the Azrael armor further. So in addition to the metal gauntlets, he adds razor-sharp batarangs, a high-powered laser, and flamethrowers before creating his own bat symbol to replace the one that was associated with Bruce. The system is basically, at this point, pushing John to think he can become a better Batman than Bruce Wayne could ever be. Eventually, John casts Tim out of the Batcave, claiming that the only solution to Gotham's crime is increased violence, and Robin was going to just stand in his way, so he would be treated like any other criminal if he tried to do so. John also harms Batman's relationship with the Gotham police due to his violent streak, to the point that even Commissioner Jim Gordon is unnerved and frightened of this new Batman. And it wasn't just his allies who were noticing a difference, as both Catwoman and the Joker both realized that the violent man in the Batsuit wasn't their Batman in their encounters. Dylan, you're going to love this. John also faced other low-level criminals, including Mr. Freeze, the Trigger Twins, Gunhawk and Gun Bunny, the Tally Man.
Whoa.
Gunhawk and Gun Bunny, that what got you this time?
That's the one.
Okay.
Gunhawk and Gun Bunny.
Yes.
So
they are
twins?
No. They are a husband, wife, boyfriend, girlfriend. I'm not really sure what their marital status is. Duo of sharpshooters.
Okay. And one of them is a bird.
Nope.
And
They're
one of
both
them
human.
is a rabbit.
They're both human. Yep.
Well, I guess if they call themselves gun person and gun person, it wouldn't have been
Gunman, gun girl.
Yeah. Wouldn't have been as flashy. But Gun Bunny actually sounds cool.
I mean, if you like a buxom blonde, holding a sniper rifle like many, gun-toting Republicans do, yeah, it might be
That's America for you.
Which Gunhawk does wear an American flag bandana, so there you go.
Yeah, but Gunhawk, obviously Gunhawk is like the most fucking American thing, right?
Yeah.
It sounds so, but Gun Bunny sounds fun, sounds nice. I like Gun Bunny. Not a fan of Gunhawk.
Gunhawk sounds to me, now that you mention it, like Charlie Day in that episode of It's Always Sunny where he's wearing the denim jacket, the American flag bandana.
He says eagle, but it's same difference really. What's the difference between a hawk and an eagle? Nothing, as far as I know.
There you go. So he managed it. John fought all of these low-level criminals and dealt with each of them very brutally. This culminated with the death of a low-level villain named Abattoir. Abattoir was a serial killer who believed every member of his family were evil, and that by killing them, he would absorb their powers. So John tracked Abattoir down to a refinery and engaged in a chase. Abattoir slipped off of a catwalk and managed to catch himself on a chain hanging over a vat of molten metal. Robin, who had been keeping tabs on John, just watched on in horror as John just stared emotionlessly as Abattoir fell to his painful death in molten metal. Afterwards, John was horrified to discover that Abattoir had been keeping a member of his family held hostage in an unknown location. Thus, by letting Abattoir fall to his death, John had condemned his innocent victim to certain death, as no one would know where they were being kept.
Yeah, I really fucked that one up, didn't they?
Sure did. So why did John let him fall? He was gridlocked. In his head, he could see the spirit of Saint Dumas telling him that he had to save the man, but then he also saw the spirit of his father, who told him that he needed to throw a razor at Abattoir's head and kill him immediately. John was not sure what to do, and so he did nothing. And that's how Batman was responsible for his first death in Gotham.
Technically.
So that is the
Batman.
end. So that is the end of both parts of Knightfall. Or not Knightfall, but Night Quest.
Like quest.
Night Quest.
The quest for the night.
Indeed. So, what we have established, Bane is off the board now. This new Batman, much similar to how, like, in Death of Superman, how Superman struggled and died fighting against Doomsday, and then when Cyborg Superman showed up, he was able to deal with Doomsday no problem. Essentially threw him into space.
Yes.
Sort of a similar beat here, where John, having failed against Bane the first time, in his second attempt, has more armor, has more weapons, and has that brainwashing that makes him a ruthless killer, pumping through his system again, and he's able to deal with Bane and basically humiliates him, separates him from his source of venom, which almost certainly cripples him to a degree.
Mm-hmm.
So Bane is off the board, and John has established himself as Batman now. And as such, he has completely alienated everyone around him. Robin's been kicked out of the Batcave. Commissioner Gordon, who has spent most of his career being able to trust Bruce, or trust Batman, has no idea who this guy is and is scared of him. The Joker and Catwoman are both like, whoa, who the fuck is this guy? Because at this point, Selena Kyle did not know who Batman was under the mask. And I think she was, if my memories are correct, the way she knew that that Batman was not Bruce was due to his pheromones, because Catwoman had enhanced smell at this point.
At that point.
I don't think she does anymore.
I was gonna say, I didn't. That's new to me. I'd never heard that before.
So this was in the 90s. This was Catwoman in like the purple costume that had a tail, if memory serves. I always thought that was weird.
Okay.
To know why they felt the need to give her a tail.
She's a cat.
I always thought like a cheeky way around that was when she would tie the whip around her waist.
Yeah. But that's not as good as a real tail, though.
No.
So think about that.
So I don't know if, like I said, we are kind of at the halfway point of this right now.
I think it's quite interesting. I like the way you said there's parallels between the Death of Superman and this story, in that like the big ultimate bad guy does the damage early on in the story, but then as the story goes on, like that's not the crescendo of the story.
Yeah.
Like you think it would be. You would think the Death of Superman would be they get rid of the guy that killed Superman, but that's not what it is. There's like so many other twists and turns to go along with that. And so quite similar to this storyline, you would think, but I think it's a bit different, because and yet we have yet to hear where it goes, so I don't know. But like honestly, in my head, I'm like, Batman seems like the kind of guy who would want not so much vengeance, but like retribution against Bane, the guy that like fucked him up that badly.
Yeah.
as opposed to Superman, who is just kind of like, because he's such like the good everyman, he's just happy to see Doomsday not be there anymore. That's the good thing.
Whereas Doomsday, he's in fucking space.
Yeah,
Sweet.
Great. I don't gotta deal with him anymore. Hooray! Whereas Batman, you feel like after all the shit that being put him through and all the shit that Batman had to do to come back from that, you know, and all the uncertainty that Batman goes through, like, is Gotham going to be okay with the guy I put in charge? Like, is that going to work out? You would think that he would have some kind of, you know, if he comes back and then everybody's like, everything's okay, wouldn't you be like, I don't believe you, you know?
Mhm.
I feel like Batman as a character would probably want to get some kind of closure, I'll say, on Bane. And again, I'm saying this like as a guy that doesn't know what the end of the story is. Maybe in the last issue, Bane's like, "It's me, bitches," you know, and then shoots a bunch of guys, and then Batman kicks him in the head. That could happen. I don't know. But like to me, from where we are in the story right now, I would imagine that I see the parallels between that and Death of Superman. But I would say that it feels like Batman would want some kind of closure against him. You know.
The thing about they kind of did the same thing here, where in Death of Superman they took that 3-month break after the funeral for a friend arc ended to give the impression of like, hey, the world of Superman's done for right now. And then they did all the new solicitations with 4 new Supermen and like, who's the real Superman? They played this straight again, like Knightfall, like this is a permanent change. John Paul Valley's Batman. He's the Batman of the 90s. You know, like this is what comic book fans want. You want morally gray anti-heroes. So here's a morally gray anti-hero dealing
Is that what
with
we wanted? Did we want that?
like I said, I mean, Venom Lethal Protector and Punisher War Journal and the Ghost Rider Spirit of Vengeance, like these were all like pretty well selling books. They were very, very popular. So the anti-hero thing was a big deal.
Wolverine?
Did you guys like read a lot of anti-hero books in the 90s?
No.
I read some not Wolverine, some Venom stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like I said, so in our episode of like most 90s characters, I had introduced Fate, which was like the biggest shift in character tone ever, from Dr. Fate to this guy who stole magic artifacts that basically had a fuck magic approach, but became the wielder of Naboo and like melted the Dr. Fate helmet into a knife. Like that's how hardcore he was. I had been reading those issues of that series, and anti-hero stuff was real fucking big. And like it's also like it doesn't hold up, or at least Fate certainly didn't, which I was not under the impression that Fate was going to be a good book when I started reading it. But yeah, like you said, John Paul Valley was meant to be the Batman moving forward to such a degree. Kind of a throwback to one of our most previous episodes, which DC versus Marvel. When the comic book companies got along better, there was a special Batman Punisher team up book that came out. That was the Azrael Batman and Frank Castle, which I think I have, actually.
Nice.
Hidden in your vault.
It's actually in a long box that's right beside me, I think.
That's your vault.
Yeah, it's my vault. It's a cardboard box.
Yeah.
it's
Put a
not
lock
sturdy,
on
but
it. Yeah. Put a big brick on top of it so nobody can lift it off.
yeah. So to kind of go back to the Crusade, Night Quest: The Crusade, that one was 25 issues from October 93 to June 94. And that was through Detective Comics, Batman Shadow of the Bat, Batman, Catwoman. So 25 issues spread across those books for that period of time.
That's a lot of story.
Mm-hmm.
It is a lot of story. This is, like I said, when I first started putting this together, I was like, all right, we'll cover Nightfall, Night Quest, and Night's End. And that will be, that'll be the episode. But then it was like, there's all this preamble before it where it's like, we got to introduce John Paul Valley. So there's the Azrael miniseries. we got to introduce Bane, so here's a Bane one shot. Then there's the lead up where Bane was like gradually escalating things, and you start to get the hints of like John Paul Valley may not be totally there still, you know, like yeah, he's doing better, but he's still like a little fucked up. So they did a lot of build up to this story before it really started, and I kind of felt like I had to cover it.
Mm-hmm.
So we're going to call that as part one of our Knightfall coverage. Part two we will have on next week's show, where we will cover Knight's End, the ending story arcs that took place after that, what happened with the main characters, adaptations and alternate versions of this story. Like I said, there's a lot to this. I just wanted to make sure that we had a lot of time to cover it all, because this was like the first big event comic I remember as a kid was Knightfall, and that's probably why I like John Paul Valley as much as I do, because like I was around and reading when this was going on.
It's like a Ben Riley situation.
Yeah, I really so yes and no. I was not a super fan of John Paul Valley as Batman, but I am a big fan of John Paul Valley as Azrael.
Okay.
So, like I said, there's a lot that happens with John after this whole storyline ends. But do you want to go ahead and do John's movie count now, or do you want to do it for the next episode, because we're going to be recording immediately after this?
Why don't we do it for the next step? Well, we can ask John what he wants to do, but like if we're
Yeah,
doing
John, what do
two
you wanna do?
episodes, it makes sense to do it on the second one, right?
I'm easy either way, to be honest. I don't mind.
You can do the real one this time and then make up one for next week.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Okay.
So, John, how many movies have you watched so far?
I am now up to 520.
Jesus, that's a jump from last time, I think.
I think it was like 495 or something last time.
What, did you just have a lot of free time?
Well, yeah, it was a bank holiday last weekend, so
Fair enough.
yeah, watched a lot of movies.
What was the
else
last
did you
film?
see?
The last movie I saw was Fanboys, which is that one about like
Is that the guys breaking into Skywalker Ranch?
yeah, which I remember being quite funny, and then I watched it and it was like, oh wait a minute, this is just making really super obvious references to Star Wars, and they're dropping a lot of gay jokes and insults and stuff, and it's like, this doesn't age well. Yeah. It's only 15 years old. Like,
it's a
that's
big,
the thing.
it's
that's
a larger gap than you think.
That's what people forget. Like 15 years, like, you know, on social media and stuff, you know, you see people who say stuff 10, 15 years ago where now it's problematic. Like, that doesn't seem like that long ago, but like things change.
Yeah.
You know?
That was a period of time during COVID where it seemed like nobody had anything better to do than like, this person I got into a disagreement on Twitter. I'm going to search their Twitter going back to 2012 to see if they said anything fucked up.
And they absolutely did.
Oh, absolutely. Almost every single time.
100%.
So, I remember the documentary / true story of that was much better than the movie.
I don't think I've seen that.
Oh yeah. It is based on a true story, but it's a lot more sentimental and heartwarming than the movie. Because if I'm not mistaken, the reason that in the real story is one of the guys has cancer and is going to die before the movie comes out. And this is like dying wish kind of motivation for them.
Yes, that's the same in the movie.
Oh, really? I thought they completely removed that.
Well, they underplay it for a lot of the movie, and the guy at no point looks or acts sick as well, so it's kind of easily forgotten about. But then they sort of tie it in at the very end, which is it's a weird choice.
It feels unjustified. Like it feels like you didn't earn that sentimental moment.
Exactly. Especially not with all the gay jokes and whatnot.
Yeah.
Well, if you want to hear John's opinions on movies that also have gay jokes in them, I'm sure. John, where can they find you on Letterboxd?
They can find me at Big John Bowski, all one word.
And Dylan, what's going on in the world of Explodey Plays?
Well, I'm glad you asked that, Corey, as I am every week. We're still pretty much where it's been in terms of I haven't got any episodes uploaded yet, but I have actually been recording new episodes. Every time you ask me this, I am recording new episodes. So I have them. I just have I want to wait till Pikmin is pretty much finished. Like I said, I reckon there's about 30 episodes of Pikmin to go that I can do, and I want to record as many as I can before I start putting them up. And I at the moment I think I'm on episode 22. I think it's 22 or 23. So we're getting pretty close to a release date, I'll say.
Nice.
Because I might start adding them and putting them up soon, because if I'm at 20 already, if I put 3 up a week, you know, I'm already like a month and a half, 2 months in business.
Nice.
So I would say by the time this episode goes up, and I know I've said this many episodes ago, but probably because this will probably go up mid-September.
Yes.
There should be some action on the channel. So check it out. Explodey Plays at youtube.com/Explodey Plays.
And you can also find my other podcast, Large Old Cup, which is a stream of consciousness podcast where we just ramble sometimes about nothing for about 28, 29 minutes, and we call it a day. Get in, get out, and
Bam.
try not to embarrass yourself.
But it happens anyway.
It does happen quite frequently. Every now and then I'll end an episode and go, God damn it. Why
the way
didn't
it
I tell
goes,
that
man.
story?
That's what happens.
Certainly does. Well,
You know?
folks, if you are listening to this on Spotify, check us out on YouTube. If you're watching us on YouTube, check us out on Spotify. We're the Smark Avengers. We talk about comics and comic-related things. And this is it. Goodbye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
See you next week for part 2 of Batman Knightfall.
Please come back.